Good morning, afternoon, everybody. And hold on one second as I immediately recognize an issue with my setup here. All right, I may have to drop part of my setup today. If you're out there and if you're hearing an echo, let me know. If you're not hearing an echo, like I am a tiny bit, I will just ignore it. But I have kind of a different setup today based on some of the hardware that I'm going to be showing. And again, if y'all are out there and you do not hear an echo, I would love a quick confirmation that the audio seems okay to y'all. Outside of that, hi, I'm Raymond Camden. I am a developer advocate for Adobe, and this is Code Break, my typically every couple of weeks show about technology, normally web technology, but today we're doing something a little bit different. Also, I am proud to say, actually, even no, let me go ahead and show that real quick. We have, I'm going to make sure I click this right. I haven't used this layout before. Yeah, there we go. We actually have a sponsor. I like to give a quick shout out to Jam. It is a browser extension that does screen recording, but the really cool part is that it includes the DevTool feedback. So if you have ever tried to help someone, debug something and they're not a nerd like we are, you try to explain, hey, can you open up your dev tools and tell me what you see there? No, this tool actually bundles all of that together, which is pretty freaking cool, I think. So something to keep in mind and check it out. And thank you to them for sponsoring this stream. I get to tell my kids now that I'm like a professional streamer, which is kind of cool. But again, thank you to them. And I see one person reporting a echo, and I'm going to try one more thing. Sue, I may just ignore you. Hope you don't mind me saying that. Uh, Trying my darndest to mute this thing. I got my phone set up basically as a camera as well. Actually, do that. I know what to do. Give me 1 second. All right, that's not what I wanted to do. As long as it's only Sue. If any of the rest of y'all hear this echo, let me know. I apologize. I wish I could show you what I'm doing. And in fact, let me actually kind of get into the meat of this. Once again, I have Todd Sharp to thank for this entire session. I'm not sure if he's here today, but he suggested that. Oh, all right. Now I got two people hearing it. Dang it, Jason. So let me tell you what I'm doing because maybe y'all can actually help me. On this streaming software, I have my account, the one you're seeing right there, Hello World. And I actually have my phone signed in as well. And my phone's audio is outputting, even though I've cranked the volume down all the way. And I just don't know what to do to turn the audio down even more because freaking Android, I think it's worse when you face the right. So if I speak here, it should be fine. Let's see. Well, that probably solved it there by me closing it. Do not understand Android sound. Oh, wait, hold on. Wow, I literally can't turn the volume down all the way. All right, well, I'll do my best to speak this way and minimize it. And if it gets too bad, y'all let me know. But as I was saying, I have Todd Sharp to thank for this idea because he suggested I look at Arduino or do some IoT type hardware type stuff. And this is something that I have thought that I should get into at some point. Like, to make a fun thing, hacking on hardware, and it's never clicked with me ever. I don't know why. I mean, if you read my blog, you know that I don't worry about doing practical things. I have fun with technology. I build stupid, fun demos, and when it comes to looking at hardware, it's like I never could think of anything that was kind of fun to build. Like, yeah, I could connect the hardware, I could read the temperature, and that's it, and nothing just actually clicked. Um, but Todd had suggested that I try this particular piece of hardware right here, the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. And what got me excited about it is the fact that it has a little LED screen. And let me actually show you, and this will explain some of the issues I'm having with the echo and all that. Let me bring you up. So I literally have this little piece of hardware propped up against a Decepticon toy on a box. I got my phone camera pointing at it, um, and it's if I sneeze, the whole thing is going to fall apart. And I wanted to do this so that y'all could actually see the output. And again, if the echo is pretty minor, if I try to face forward and y'all are okay with it, if it gets to be too bad, I will yank the phone out, and that way we won't have to worry about it. But I wanted to actually be able to show you when stuff was on the device, so you could see it. And literally that display, that little part directly kind of in the center, those little LED lights, that's what got me excited. That's what it took for me to finally give this a shot. So I will warn you that my knowledge of this is incredibly minimal, and I know this may come as a surprise. Like, I got stuff working without completely understanding what I'm doing. I know that nobody out there has ever done that. None of y'all have written code or copied and pasted code and it worked and didn't really grok what it was doing. But that's what I did, and that's kind of want to show you. Uh, yeah, to today. Yeah, yes, overhead camera. So, Mark, it's funny you say that. Um, when I used to be big into Apache Cordova and PhoneGap, 10 years ago, and also um, Flex Mobile. Um, I had one of those downward facing cameras. And for some reason, even though I never throw away hardware, I threw away that hardware. That would have been perfect because then I could have laid down the Arduino flat, pointed the camera at it, and not have this Rube Goldberg type setup that I have to my side here, just to get the camera pointing at it. But yeah, if I decide to do a second session on this or keep hacking at it, and if you like it, then I'm going to, because I do not want to set my phone up like this again. I'll also point out this LED display isn't really, really minimal. However, I kinda dig that. What you're seeing, what you're not seeing on screen, let me get this. Yeah. This is the Tidbyte. It is like a old school analog display, that you can add apps to and stuff, and I've had one of these for a good year or so, and they have an API as well. But when Todd showed me that particular Arduino hardware, that was the first thing I thought of, is hardware that I could kind of mimic, what's in the Tidbyte as well. So that's, what came to mind. So how in the heck do you actually use this thing? I'm gonna walk you through kind of how I stumbled into this and kind of how I figure things out, and y'all let me know if this makes sense. I will say it's really important that you recognize the name of your hardware. That's going to come up multiple times. So, one of the first things you find out is that they have an IDE called the Arduino IDE. For the most part, works really, really well. But very, very, very big warning if you're on Windows. I do most of my work in WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux. It's an Ubuntu VM that runs native to Windows. It's been there for 5 or 6 years. It's part of why I switched back to Windows because I thought that was a cool thing. So I do all of my work in that particular file system, not the main Windows file system. I while I was learning and hacking and trying things out, I got one script working well, and I saved it to WSL, and IDE just kind of like blew up. The file went away. It was just kind of weird and wacky. Did some Googling, and I saw that there's issues with the IDE and UNC paths. I don't believe WSL qualifies as a UNC, slash network path. Maybe it does, but just keep in mind that if you do use this IDE and you use it on Windows, don't go into WSL, don't go into a network path, just save locally, which I guess makes sense. WSL is still local anyway, but you understand what I'm saying. Uh, One of the first things you will do is go into your board manager right there. And I don't remember. I think it may have auto detected as soon as I connected the USB-C connection. Um, if not, I typed in the name, but as soon as I did that, it just took over. It did all the drivers and all that, and it magically worked. I was really, really happy with that. Just it was painless. In fact, you could see there at the bottom, it may be a little hard to read, but it says Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi on COM3. This has worked fine in all of my testing. Yesterday, when I was setting up and testing, um, it couldn't connect. And I Googled, I panicked. If you know anything at all about me, you know that I panic incredibly easy. My middle name is anxiety, and I noticed that Windows had an update, so I was like, you know what, screw it. I will let Windows do its update. I'll reboot and see what happens. And the magic of turn it off and on again worked. Um, but that's the only time I've had an issue like that. This morning, I plugged in the hardware, and again, just simple USB C, nothing weird like that, and it connected, no problem at all. But you will have that first time, tell me what your hardware is, and IDE will recognize that. The other cool thing that you get when you are working with a particular piece of hardware is that you can go into file and go into examples, and they will have some built-in ones, but then they'll also have examples specific for your hardware, which is really, really cool. Because then you don't have to worry about code for different things. And that brings up, let's go back to here about recognizing what board you have and keeping that in mind, because when I was playing around and trying to figure out like how to do one particular thing, and I would Google, I would get on Arduino docs, but it would be on different hardware. And surprise, surprise, code didn't work. Um, Being of the web platform mindset, that was a bit of a surprise. It was a bit hard to deal with. But what I realized is that stop Googling and just look at the documentation, because what they have is a bunch of examples um, telling you how to do stuff. And don't have that particular link open now. Get started, I think, is it. Let's see. Yeah, they have I may not be on it right now, um, but they have a particular documentation page that has a bunch of examples, and all of them are specific just to this particular hardware. So you need to know how to do so and so. Then you go into that doc. And in fact, here we go. Actually, I actually am on there. So all of these tutorials here. So, for example, working with Wi-Fi, etc. Uh, I wouldn't bother googling all. Just kind of stick in this area. to know what to do. Uh, the other big thing that you'll find out is that it is C, and I have not ever written C. The closest that I have gotten to writing C is back in the 90s when I was playing multiplayer text games called MUDs in college. They used a variant of C called LPC. So I had a passing acquaintance with the language. Um, for the most part, I didn't have any issues. It is a typed language, and I think the only issue I ever had was I had to convert a a string to an array of characters, and I had, like, no clue. I Googled how to do that in C, and, like, the first solution just worked, and, yeah, I copied and pasted, and it worked, so, you don't necessarily need to know C, and especially with all the sample code in there, you can kind of figure out how things go. I'm gonna get an example, so we could show you the basics, and we'll do the very first one, and it's gonna open up, and here we have the program. So, to actually get stuff running, you need to compile it, and that's or they call it verifying, and that's the first button I clicked. I may have done that a little bit quick. Nice. So, let me share this comment from Kitten Nancy. Try help from the Arduino man. So, Nitty Nancy, I am curious to know if this focuses the help on my particular hardware. Let's see. And it went into a different window over here. So this is what opened up. Um, it's not focused on my hardware, but it does get you at least started, and you could at least find your item down there. So I verified the program. Oh, let me hide this real quick. And then to put it on the board, you click upload. That is something else that I probably spent like an hour a bit confused. Because at first I was thinking more like Raspberry Pi, like this was a mini PC. And I thought, do I need to telnet to it and FTP to it? I actually know telnet and FTP, so I wouldn't have minded that. But essentially, this hardware basically is one program. So when I pushed this program up there, I wiped out what was there already. It's essentially written in the hardware. And what's kind of cool about that is I could actually unplug it. I sure as heck I'm not going to unplug it because I don't want to mess with my setup. But when you turn it back on again, that program just keeps running. So their sample docs are actually pretty helpful, and it's even telling you that if you go into the serial monitor, you could see, not sure how well that's streaming. My face is kind of blocking it as well. But see all those numbers there? We can actually look at the code. There is a setup function that, as they say, it runs once. It's doing serial communication, which I know nothing at all about outside of it's a way to communicate. And loop is a function that's just automatically run forever. And you could see right here, it's reading from one of the pins on the hardware. No clue which one. It's going to use serial.println to draw it out. By the way, for you web folks like me, when I saw this, I thought, oh, console.log, and yeah, I used the heck out of this to debug stuff, and then a delay to show a little bit slower. I'll put the plot on again. I have no idea what any of this means, but it looks cool. But I will close it. So once I realized the kind of flow, so take the program, verify it. I'm not sure if you have to verify it, but that seemed to catch bugs a lot easier. Um, Upload it, and then it runs automatically. Once I realized that was my flow, that's when I started to kind of debug and try new stuff, try the Wi-Fi, try other things until I got running the kind of core of what I want to show you next, like kind of like my real program. But again, this is actually running on the hardware now. It's not using the LEDs at all, so it's not there. They actually have a good example of the LED matrix, and we'll do game of life. Why not? I love the game of life. And again, not being a C person, like looking at this cloud, I could see, oh, it's including a lot. Of course, the comment says that, but but still, it made sense to me. The define statements feel like constants in JavaScript. All this kind of clicks, and scrolling over, you could see it's setting up the data for the LED. I could see the setup function and the loop function. And in theory, if I verify this and we upload this, again, it's going to just overwrite what I had there already. In theory, my LED light is going to start showing things. Oh, it is. And let me see if I could focus on that so y'all can see it a bit better. Look at that, lights! This made me so happy. I'm not even going to say I'm embarrassed to say that. This made me really, really freaking happy. I thought that was cool as heck. But I did this a couple of times. I went into let me actually switch back so we could show. There we go. I actually prefer this. There we go. I looked at the different examples for writing to the LED screen. They also support basic text. Let me actually show that. And again, examples, LED matrix. There you go. Text with Arduino graphics. Really don't like the fact that the IDE keeps opening new windows, but let me actually kind of kill these. All right, so looking at setup, actually, let's look at loop. You could see they create a string, or I guess it's a character array of text. They set some values for colors and stuff and just print it and scroll it. And so all that seemed to make sense. If we verify this and run this, upload it. There are no active handlers available for the command. Sure, there are. Just upload this. I don't need to verify anything. Let's see what happens. All right, it's uploading, and we'll switch to show the camera. It uploaded and text. Now, by the way, the text is upside down. I recognize that. Um, when I got my setup here working, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to mess with it to try to flip it. Technically, I could write code that would just do things upside down. If for some reason this hardware was like embedded in the wall or something like that, you have pixel by pixel control over each one of those lights. So you could absolutely flip things. Uh, but for now, we're just going to have to deal with that. And Jason said that previous demo was reading from pin A0, which is amongst a series of pins right above the display. I did not even notice A0. Thank you, Jason. That's very clearly labeled. Now, the only thing like I wish I understood better, and Jason, you are welcome to answer this as well, is what? Like, is it basically an empty hole that something else would connect to? And then if I read from that, it would give me the data. Like, what is the pin actually doing besides just being a pin? Um, that I have no clue on. And again, Jason, if you know, I will gladly share your comment on that. By the way, true story. One of the reason I have kind of avoided doing hardware stuff is because I feel like my hand, like I have no arm muscles at all. I am a weakling, uh, but my hands have always felt like if I touch something, I'm gonna break it. Like, I can remember being scared to install RAM, in a desktop computer because I was convinced when I pushed that RAM in, I was just gonna crumble it into dust. Oh. Great comments coming in. Nitty Nancy, A0 was an analog input. Yep, Jason agrees. Turns the volt. So Nitty Nancy, when you say it turns the voltage, is that like the voltage, the power coming into the hardware, and it was reporting on that? Would you agree with that, Nitty Nancy? I always feel weird when I ask a question, y'all don't respond immediately, and then I remember that the stream is a couple seconds behind. No pressure, Nitty Nancy. I will take the opportunity to take a sip of water. I'd also be curious to know, like, why you would need to know the amount of power. Um, I feel like this is touching on things that I never have to worry about. Like maybe if you were a fire alarm system and you wanted to see if there wasn't enough power to make the sound, like you're getting juice, but not enough to actually make a horn sound, then maybe you would throw an error or do something else. All right. And then when you read, you get a count and software packet value proportional to input voltage. Cool. That makes sense. Cool. So, like I said, I played with various things like this just to see things kind of show up on screen, like you see now. Let me get back to that view, and I just kept playing with different programs until I created my first one, and I realized we're kind of going from Hello World to way more complex. But let me find it. Open recent MQTT2. All right. So this is not rendering well. Come on. There we go. All right. So this is a slightly more advanced example that does a couple of different things. And I patched it together. And by the way, this took me a couple hours, and this is the file I lost or I thought I lost. But I was very happy to find it. It connects to Wi-Fi, and I literally did that by including a library, and looking around for the docs and seeing how to connect and all that. Um, and I include, by the way, my password and SSID in a secrets file. Ray, don't click that file. I know you want to click that tab. It looks similar to a .env file in a Node.js type environment, um, but you can put your secrets in there. This connects to Wi-Fi and then uses MQTT, which is a messaging system, to listen for messages on a particular topic. So I know, again, I'm going from hello world to a complex Wi-Fi messaging type system, but we'll kind of scroll through this slowly slowly. Um, I initialized a couple of variables. A lot of this I just copied and pasted from examples, and I basically took a Wi-Fi example and I looked at a MQTT example and kind of hashed them together. By the way, I didn't set up an MQTT server. My buddy Todd Sharp did. He sent me the credentials, which are also in that secrets file, and that's how I did my testing. But you see a bunch of variables that are kind of setting up um, constants and things like that. If we go into setup, you could see, and this is all code again that I just took from what they had. So there's a way to check for Wi-Fi on the hardware, which in theory I don't need to do because I know what hardware I'm using. But there we go. I could also check if the firmware is not good enough, and then actually try to begin to connect to Wi-Fi. And you see again that system that serial.println console.log. That's the way you could think of it. Um, but this code worked really, really well, really, really easily. I had no problems connecting. to it. I was a bit worried because I have a piece of weather hardware outside that did not like my Google Wi-Fi hardware. I had to jump through hoops to get it on the network, but this just plain worked. The MQTT stuff, again, I took their code and it's not that hard. I get never having written C in my life, like all this just kind of makes sense. Um, there's a connect statement, taking my port. You see, I have my username and password there, which are in my file, my secrets file that I'm not going to click. And then it is going to connect and subscribe to a topic. Now, what is a topic, you may ask? There is a great, let me get this URL up here. All right, on the AWS site, they have a great little explainer on MQTT. Uh, I think of it as a system for publishing and listening for messages. And you could literally have multiple things that broadcast, that listen. Um, and the other really cool part about this, let me scroll down here to right here. Let me make that bigger. All right. So, one of the coolest aspects of this is the fact that you define a topic that's like a category for your messages, and it's a folder slash hierarchy where a system could say, I'm broadcasting from our home slash ground floor slash living room slash light. And I could say, I'm only listening to our home slash first floor, and I would never recognize that message. Or I could say I'm listening to our home and get messages from anything broadcasting in that hierarchy. So it's a very simple text based way of categorizing messages and what you want to listen to and what you want to broadcast to. Incredibly simple, and just kind of easy to use. Switch in. Yes. And again, I have Todd to thank for pushing me to look at MQTT, and it just worked. And as Mark is saying here, it's widely used, and I see why. If we go back to the code, it was like 8 or 9 lines. It wasn't hard at all. The Let me show you what I did. So subscribe to the topic. And in my loop, I poll and I forget where I said the on, I think, oh, right there. So, and y'all tell me if I scroll too fast. So I have basically a message handler that's going to be fired when it gets a message, and that runs that method there. Let me share what Jason is sharing. Yeah. Yes, Jason, message queues are one of those things we were talking about earlier where I've used it without fully understanding what I was actually doing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so this is the message handler that's going to fire when it realizes that something was broadcast on that topic that it's listening to. Again, I have a bunch of console.log messages, serial dev println, and I can read in the message sent, and then I integrated the code I got from the LED examples to print that uh, on screen. Uh, you could see actually in the hardware, it is still showing the last program. But this is basically going to take the message you got from MQTT and show it on screen. The only time I needed to Google is that this was being passed a string, and as far as I understood, the printing aspect of it needed that character array, and I got C underscore string. Character to string, I guess, but it's really going string to character. I don't know. This was the result I got for convert string to character array. So the net result of all this is that this program will start up. It will connect to Wi-Fi, and I'm gonna turn on logging so y'all can see this. It will then connect to the MQTT server, listening to particular topics, and a topic on top is Netlify updates, which is going to make sense in a minute. I'll kind of talk about what I want to do with this. And then if something broadcasts to it, the message handler way down here is going to get it. It's going to get that string out. In fact, this handler could be a heck of a lot smaller if I took out all the debugging. Um, but then use the LED drawing stuff to print the message. Would be Sue. When you say lock it down, what in particular are you looking to lock down? The Arduino or something else? And while she answers, I will compile this. There we go. All right, it worked okay. And now we're going to push it up to the device. And I should see a bunch of input serial monitor on once it's done uploading. We should see a bunch of messages as it connects to the Wi-Fi done. Let's see. And there we go. All right, you're connected to the network, attempting to connect to the MQTT broker. You're connected, subscribing, and waiting. Bam. IoT. Yeah, Sue. I've got no freaking clue to even talk about security on this at all. Yeah, you got me on that. Don't come to me for security, come to me for insecurity. So, uh, right now, this is listening. Now, it could definitely broadcast as well, but I wanted it just to listen. I have some Node.js code right here in Run.js. And if you don't know about Run.js, it's like a code pen locally for Node.js. You can open up tabs, quickly write stuff, and run it without having to go to the file system and things like that. But the Node.js code for MQTT, you see, it's like 14 lines total, where I am doing the same topic as I'm listening to. I am printing 1, 2, 3, 4. If I run this and I'm going to switch off this and go back to this, you should see 1, 2, 3, 4 again, upside down. But we'll run it. And don't let me down. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think Jason had a good comment about security. Yes, you would need an SSL certificate to encrypt traffic between Arduino and message queue. I'd be willing to bet that there's support for that, and I just didn't even look that up. So that ran. Let's go back to showing the code, and let me get this up. And we're going to switch screens so you can see the bottom. That's a little bit small. The editor had a setting for the font size for the code, and I made that pretty big. I don't see a way to make it bigger here, but it did say it received a message, told me how long the length was in bytes, and said what it was going to draw, basically print out. So the long story short is that now I could go in here and I could say, thank you, Jason and Mark, Sue, etc. I could just change that string, broadcast it, and then you will see it scroll very quickly upside down. I will say in real life, me looking over here, it is incredibly clear. I think my phone camera is actually too close to the screen, but it works. So let's kick it up a notch. Again, not having an idea about what I was doing. One of the things that I thought may be cool about this, and something that I actually did on my Tidbyte device, which I don't know why I'm pointing. Y'all can't see it, but if my monitor's in front of me, it's about 8 inches off the ground and off the desk. And amongst the Star Wars toys I have in front of me, I also have the tidbit next to it. I set up on Netlify, which is where I host my blog. I set up a serverless function such that when the build succeeded, it would send me a message. And I did that because my build in the past have taken 15 minutes. Now it's about 5 minutes. Sometimes I really, really want to know uh, exactly when a build is done. So I built the demo that would tell my tidbit to blink at me. Um, so what about doing that for um, Netlify? For having it use MQTT when the build is successful, do it then. So let's go ahead and try that. So I'm going to make a new site. I'm going to call it MQTT demo, and let me close up some of this. We're going to drop one file, even though I don't really care what's in here. I want Netlify to be able to do something. Hello world. And let's go ahead and deploy this to production. I go straight to production. That's how I roll. We now typically my Netlify sites are connected to a GitHub repository. In this case, I'm just using the file system. So I'm going to create and configure a new site in my team. I will call it MQTT demo, and we're going to publish the local directory. And in theory, that is done. And I have my Netlify panel up in here. We'll click sites, and there is my site. And if we open this up, there's a website. Cool. So I am going to set up a serverless function. And the way that Netlify does it is that if you name your serverless function according to a certain rule, it will automatically fire that particular function. So in this case, if we call it deploy succeeded, and yes, if you're looking at my, oh, you're not, I apologize. Y'all should have been yelling at me. The site did launch. There it is. I'm doing stuff in my editor and not actually showing things. I apologize. Yes, yes. That was a test, Jason. You failed. I'm sorry. You get not the gold star, whatever the opposite of a gold star is. So what you didn't see me on screen do real quick was I ran a command line function to deploy the current directory up to Netlify. And I just made a new folder, made an HTML file. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scaffold a serverless function. Functions create. Come on, take your time. It's going to be a serverless function. Accept the defaults, JavaScript, not TypeScript. Hello world. And the name is deploy succeeded, as two C's, two E's, like that. All right, so I'm going to open up that serverless function, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because I did work on a little quick test earlier. And I'm going to copy and paste some existing code where all I'm going to do is output to Netlify's logs that the deploy worked. And I know all that can go away. And not maybe, data. So, and this function doesn't output anything in the result because it's not a function that is run via anything. It's literally a system invoked event. So got that function, and we are going to deploy to prod. Maybe, there we go. And I realize my face is there again. There you go, so you can actually see it. And I forgot to get rid of the banner. Brian warned me about that. There we go. There it is, the bottom. Publishing, pushing up the HTML file, pushing up the serverless function, and boom. Now, one thing I was never really sure of is when you push a function like this, run on deploy success, but it's part of the actual deploy, does it actually get run or not? So we will look at the logs and see. And it's not showing up, which means I think I need to run it a second time. I think because it was included in the build, it wasn't recognized. So we'll just run it again. Do. And bam. So now, in theory, I'll just click away, click back. I will reload. There we go. All right. Deploy succeeded. And there we go. So I kind of went over this a little bit too quick, but this data is part of the body that was sent to the serverless function. In this particular case, it's what Netlify sent on the successful deploy. And this is going to be ugly as sin. Let me copy that whole log, drop it into here, and see how well it could format that JSON, even though there's crap in front. It did pretty good. And I could see that I have a payload that includes probably information I shouldn't be showing on screen, but that's all right. I'll minimize some of this. And I will say the things that I care about the most is the time and the deploy time, which I'm pretty sure is in seconds. And considering this was one file, the 1 second deploy absolutely makes sense. It takes a little bit longer when I run this from my blog, like I was saying, 5 minutes or so. But in theory, this is all we need. All I got to do then is copy in the code from Run.js, and I'm going to do this, import MQTT, and we're going to, I'm just going to copy everything like that. And the only thing I need to do now is specify those environment variables. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that off screen because obviously I don't want y'all looking at my stuff. So we're going to drag this over here. Netlify lets you specify environment variables in your configuration. And I'm just making really, really sure it's off screen before I do this. And I'm going to add a variable for MQTT server. MQTT server. And that value will also be something that I don't show y'all. I'm so proud of myself. I haven't screwed this up once yet. All right, so I got my MQTT server. And then I'm going to do MQTT username. MQTT username. And I got that value, which probably isn't that much of a secret, but I'm going to do that anyway. And then the last one is MQTT password, which is just password. Don't tell anybody. No, it's not password. It's not. It is something else. All right, get in there, create variable. All right, so I will drag this back over here. I will go away from the secret screen, come back over here. We're not doing Arduino again for a little bit, so I'll put that behind. And now Netlify knows about my MQTT settings. So this should all be picked up in theory. And thank you, Edge, for telling me about notifications. I will change this to say from Netlify. And like I said, chicken and egg. I'll deploy once. Um, I'm not sure if it updates deploy succeeded before running it. Well, we'll see. You can see my screen there. Deploy. Everything looks okay. If I actually get this done in an hour, I'll be shocked. To be clear, that script with the Wi-Fi MQTT, that was a couple hours. That was not as easy. So let's see. I'm looking at the screen. Nothing yet. Let's look at our deploys. 1250. So maybe again, chicken and egg. So I will run a deploy again. Come on, prompt me on the folder. CLI doesn't let you pass that, which is silly. All right, so it's copying and that is super fast. I did not see a message. So let's go look at our function logs and see what happened. Aha. Cannot. Where is the screen wrap? Where is the screen wrap? Cannot find. Oh, yep. Okay. So for things that you have to import, pretty sure this is going to work. I'm going to do a npm init minus yes, npm I mqtt. I'm 90% sure Netlify will just pick up on this, include it, and that way it will run it. I'm mostly sure. Come on, prompt me on the folder. And fire. All right, that took a little bit longer. I really need to. Let's see, this is still saying 1251. So in theory, we'll see when at 1252. Let me go back to deploys that ran and look at the functions and see what it says. Missing protocol. Oh, I know what this is. I've seen this before. Protocol ID is right there. Let me look at my run.js code real quick just to see, make sure I didn't. Got my imports. I got all that. I didn't forget anything. Protocol ID is right there. Protocol version is right there. Yeah, So what do we do, folks, when stuff like this happens? Google.com and Node MQTT. Yeah, I bet you do recommend. I'm not switching. Missing protocol. Missing protocol. Oh, yes. Okay, I don't have to click. It's because you missed a protocol out of the URI. It's not HTTPS, it's something else. So give me 1 second because I need to modify the environment variable to include that, and I'll tell y'all what it is. This is why you don't do things live. I should have made these environment variables earlier, but that's all right. So I'm going to MQTT server. I'm going to edit it, and then I'm going to copy over my protocol variable, which is also a secret tools environment variables. Oh, that's nice. Thank you. I'll be changing that password really quick. So it is MQTT : // All right. So let me get that in there. Enter the value. Basically, what I did is I had specified a web address, kind of. It's one way of looking at it. I had specified a web address without HTTPS in front, and that mattered to the Node.js code. So now, absolutely, in the last 5 minutes, this is going to work. And y'all could still see the device. So if in theory it works. And I'm trying to watch both the both the hardware and Netlify's messaging. So let's see if I screwed this up again. I did not. It worked, but I didn't see it. So let's just publish again. And let's see. Let's see if it shows up. Should say from Netlify. And please work. You're so close. So close. And I'm not seeing it. So we look at the logs. We got no errors. And it's for the heck of it. Console.log published. Oh, and you know what? So let's actually run this. Let's deploy this. And come on, ask me to the folder. There we go. And go back to here. We could see, so let me make that bigger. In the logging, the last message it got was thank you, Jason, Mark, Sue, etc. It was not from Netlify. So it's not getting the messages. So we'll go back to deploys. It published in 7 seconds. Go back to here, look at the logs, and published. So, I honestly don't know. It seemed to work fine, and it definitely has all the same variables, has the username, has the password. We're down to like minutes. I don't want to leave it without having something show up here. So I guess we could say what is the result? Because maybe it had an error. I have no idea what this returns. But we will just log it, see what happens. This thank you over. So good question, Sue. It that came from Run.js where I was broadcasting the message. It wouldn't overwrite it; it would just be a new message. So if my code was working, that message would be picked up by the hardware. If I went to Run.js and ran my code as well, that would also work. I essentially have two places broadcasting now. Run.js when I run the code, and Netlify, it's supposed to, when it runs that function, also broadcast. I'm not running the Run.js code anymore, so it shouldn't be picking up from that in theory. So let's go back to deploys. Today, 12:58. Yep. Reload. Look at the logs. And of course, I had a big kind of complex response back. I'm kind of looking for like a failure or something like that. And there's my password. So I'll definitely be changing that. I guess I've not had it ever fail. So I haven't had a need to actually kind of debug the messages because it just worked. In fact, let's actually go back to Run.js real quick and run it again. And in theory, you'll see it. Oh, maybe my hardware did fail. I got a lot of moving parts here. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Blah blah blah. All right, so it is working. So Where I'm going to leave things at today, because it is an hour, and for all you who stayed the entire time, I appreciate it. Um, I'm going to stop now. And what I'm thinking I'll do is next time we will debug what's happening, like when the message was sent, why didn't it get picked up? And we'll take it from there. And I'll probably also try to think of another demo. What I would like to do, and this is kind of crazy for such a small screen, is not only say that the deploy succeeded, but maybe say like how long it took, which is absolutely stretching what should be done in that small thing. Anyway, I'm going to kill my phone. There we go. No more echo. No, wait. Now, no more echo. Now, still an echo. How is it even working? Let me actually close. There we go. I had to kill the browser on my phone. Thank you all for staying for longer than an hour. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for Jason, too, Mark, etc. All you gave me feedback about what the hardware was doing. I really appreciated it. This is fun. So hopefully, in 2 weeks for the next show, we'll get this last bit running, and we'll have an integration between Netlify and my website and my hardware and my LED display and all that jazz. Stay safe out there, be healthy, and again, thank you so much for showing up. I greatly appreciate y'all. Bye.